Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another special video. And today we're going to be talking all about Saturn and Pluto and the South Node and the eclipses occurring in the sign of Capricorn, which is a huge influence on a global and individual level that's been affecting us already for several months, but is really coming into play now while Saturn and Pluto are both stationing or slowing down to station to go retrograde in a close conjunction with the South Node. And this is all leading up to an energy that's really going to continue playing out through the start of next year and really into 2020. And so this is a really big influence, a really powerful influence, and a really karmic influence, because we have three of the most karmic planets and points, the nodes, Saturn and Pluto involved. And so as a special treat, I decided to bring on one of my favorite astrologers, the wonderful and talented Kesenya, who is the person to go to for karmic astrology. We've talked about karma and past lives in astrology in a previous video. And so I thought, who better to discuss this with than somebody who has such a really intense knowledge base around this subject. So without further ado, Kesenya, welcome.
Hi, thanks Heather, and hello everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this topic.
Yeah, me too. This is a big one, and it's something that everyone is going to be impacted by because it is so intense. Even if we're not being impacted specifically on a planet or, you know, in aspect to a personal planet, we're all feeling this energy because it's such an overarching energy on a global scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I mean, Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008. We've seen a lot of shifts happening since then, but particularly now with the conjunction of the South Node. Earlier in, I mean, we know we'll get into this further as we go along, but in 2010 we had the conjunction of Pluto and the North Node, and now it's come full circle, well, half circle really, where Pluto's conjuncting the South Node, all in Capricorn with Saturn. Like it's heavy duty, and it's going to relate to people at a very global level, but also very, very personal level, which we'll get into as the video goes along. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, no, it's exciting times and scary times too. I mean, God, don't let me go running ahead of anything here. You know, rein me in if you need to. But Pluto is now opposite where it was for the generation that went through the wars. Like Pluto and Cancer generation were born between 1913 to 1937, I think, 39. And that generation were the ones that were born in the First World War era, the Depression, all those things going on, the rise of Nazism, etc. And then they lived through the Second World War. So we're in opposing energy to that now, and that was very much about new structures, you know, changing the dynamics of things, changing the world order. And now we're in that phase similarly where we're in Pluto and Capricorn. There's a change in structures, there's a change in hierarchies, and a change in the global direction of our, well, this generation and future generations to come, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you noticed anything like that, anything that relates to that and correlates to that?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the biggest things that I am noticing, and one of the things that makes sense, so when you go back, kind of take a backtrack for people who aren't completely familiar with, you know, astrological terminology and all of that, and what the planetary influences are. When we look at something like Pluto indicates a really deep transformation, and it really pulls all of the muck and all of the stuff that's been hidden beneath the surface in terms of fears, anxieties, insecurities, traumas, and any secrets that have been buried are really bubbling up to the surface. It also rules power and control issues and oppressive forces, especially in Capricorn. Capricorn has to do with government, it has to do with corporations, it has to do with structures and hierarchies, and Saturn has to do with pretty much the same thing. And when you get Saturn in a conjunction with Pluto, it's a major restructuring, especially when it's a restructuring of anything that feels very burdensome and very oppressive in our lives that we have taken on or that has been imposed on us from the outside, especially through these types of hierarchies. And the main thing I've been getting, it's like insane how many readings, and maybe you have this experience as well, from people who are working in some sort of corporate setting who are just absolutely at their breaking point. They can't deal with the oppressive energy of their work, of these situations in their lives. And if it's not work, it's something else. It's their relationships, it's their finances, and maybe they have debt or something like that, and it's really weighing on them. Or, you know, or their family members, and their family structure, their family dynamic is super oppressive, and they feel like they don't have control over that area of their lives. And everyone's looking for how to get out of it and how to break through. And one of the themes that I'm noticing is that people are they're either avoiding making the changes that they need to make because it's scary. And there's that energy with Pluto and Saturn of procrastinating, of wanting to hold on to the way things were, especially these structures that seemed so secure and so safe. Or there's this energy of wanting to just purge it and get rid of it right now. And Saturn's like, no, you can't just do that and create chaos. You have to wait. You have to be patient. You have to work at it. Like, this is not something that just happens. You have to put in the effort and create a new foundation. And that's the big thing that I'm seeing on a personal level. I don't know if you've seen that too.
I have, and I'm probably the latter. I'm like, bring it on, Pluto, let's just get rid of this shit. And I can definitely feel Saturn going, come on, you know, behave yourself. There's rules and regulations about how we do all this stuff. I'm like, no. But yeah, absolutely. I see this too. I've had a lot of clients coming to me. A lot of what is really interesting is so many people have come to me for a particular, I've got a reading that's on special on my website at the moment for Pluto and the South Node conjunction, and to see what that is affecting in your chart. And a lot of people are Cancer, strong Cancer, they're Cancer rising, or they've got Moon and Sun in Cancer. Very strong Cancer people I seem to be seeing a lot of. So the polarity point of Pluto. Now, you're probably familiar with the work of Jeff Green, are you? A brilliant astrologer who did a lot of work around Pluto being the representation of our soul and our soul journey. And so a lot of people are now looking for, what is my life purpose all about? Why, you know, why am I here? What is this, you know, this karmic journey, this soul journey? This is Pluto. These are Pluto questions. Pluto is the soul. Pluto, Jeff Green said, is the resistance to necessary change. And that's why Pluto likes to hold on to things, because he resists necessary change. And yet at the same time, he's trying to help us up level in our karmic journey, in our soul journey. And sometimes he does that through ripping the rug out from underneath us if we aren't willing to let go of that control. So when you were just describing then these people who are just hanging on to their issues, their hurts and their wounds and what have you, and not wanting to process them enough, Pluto will rip that out, you know, through whatever means necessary. But the people who are looking to heal, to up level, to like, oh, I just want to get out of this situation, there are ways and means that people can do that, usually through the polarity point of where Pluto is in their chart. But right now I'm getting all these Cancer strong people coming into the readings who are wanting to get rid of the shit because they're in the polarity point of Pluto's transiting position right now. And that's usually what's being triggered. So it's fascinating observation to see who's coming in. You probably notice this too, that it comes in waves. You know, you'll get a ton of people who are all Cancer energy in some way or another, or a ton of people who are all having their progressed new moon who are wanting a reading about ministry. It comes in waves, and this is what I've been noticing. The wave is very Cancer strong right now because of the polarity to Pluto and Saturn and the nodes. Yeah, that's
Well, and speaking of the polarity point, and that makes, and especially now with the North and South Node, those are polarities, right? So we're moving into this energy of the North Node, and people are kind of trying to embrace that Cancerian energy of nurturing a family. That's where we can find solace, like in integrating the opposite energy. If you are having a major struggle in your life involving these overarching government forces, your job, some sort of structure or burden in your life, you go to the opposite house, you go to Cancer, you focus on what feels good to you. You focus on what feels comfortable and safe and secure, your emotional well-being, your connection with your family or people that feel like family. These are like looking at more of a grassroots sort of connection. You know, that's really where we're going to find the good energy.
That's absolutely right. And particularly as a collective, as we deal with these energies,
Yes.
when it comes to personal charts, there's so much more to it than that. Like if you have the South Node currently in your natal chart, if the South Node's in your 4th house, then you're going to actually be purging a lot of those.
True. That's true.
Talked about. So it's really very connected to the collective energy, that Cancer polarity point, and people can utilize that for sure on a large scale. But yeah, perhaps we should get into looking at the collective and how this Capricorn, Pluto, Saturn, South Node conjunction might be influencing things on a collective level, and then we can go personal maybe.
We're getting into the juicy stuff.
Yeah. Stick around, people. The personal stuff's coming.
Yeah, Kesenya and I talked about this quite a bit before off camera, just because there's so much to talk about with this. This is a big topic. And so, you know, when we were talking about things like corporate restructuring, we were talking about this revelation of all these hidden sort of criminal acts, right? These hidden sort of the seedy underbelly of, you know, the corporatocracy, right? Because government and corporations are one thing now, and it's undeniable that the corporations are influencing the government in some way. It just depends on to what degree you believe.
And the media too. Like,
yes.
Let's not deny Rupert Murdoch's involvement in half of this stuff. Sorry, yeah. To pinpoint names. But yeah, there's a wonderful guy in Australia who is an ex-lecturer at one of our top universities, who started a YouTube channel. I hope it's okay if I share what it is. It's called The Juice Media, and he's committed to exposing government corruption. And he's sort of got this cracking over the last couple of years, but the government in Australia is so, let's say, worried about him, petrified about him, because he's revealing the truth to common people in a satirical way that's amusing and interesting and punchy and brilliant, actually. And the government is so concerned about this that they tried to get a bill through Parliament making it illegal for someone to criticise the government. Illegal for someone to criticise the government. Hello, Nazism, communism, like this is Australia, you know, we're a democracy, meant to be. Fortunately, it hasn't got through, but I mean, the fact that they even tried to moot this thing in the Parliament, it's very, very scary, because, like I said before, Pluto is clinging on to old things and not wanting to let go, and then by doing so, Pluto, the energy will be ripped out from under them. And this is what the government's doing in Australia with that example. They're trying to cling on to, you can't reveal the truth about what the white collar crime and the corporate underbelly and this sort of thing, and we are going to make sure you don't. There's this, we'll experience collectively a crackdown on you know, like WikiLeaks is another issue that's arisen, particularly over this Pluto in Capricorn period, exposing the truth, and people getting really, you know, no, we're not going to let the hierarchies crumble, and so it's going to be ripped out because the hierarchies will crumble. Sorry, I hope I'm explaining myself right here, but yeah, so we're seeing it everywhere at the moment, I feel. I mean, you've got great examples of that too.
Oh, yeah. Well, Julian Assange getting arrested is like the most Capricorn, Saturn, Pluto, South Node conjunction thing that could possibly happen, especially when we look at the historical context, which we'll get into, because we have this wave of information that's been disseminated via the internet. So people have free access to all sorts of information that even a decade or 2 decades ago we did not have. This is, you know, medical science that we have access to. This is political opinions. This is literally a way to disseminate information that undermines government authority, especially when it comes to, and so this is where we get into how all of this is all one big conglomeration now, right? So we have what I refer to as the military, industrial, medical, educational media complex, because they're all just one big, you know, structure, hierarchy, one big thing. And so if you do anything to undermine the authority of this I guess, governing body at this point and in this day and age, you're going to get targeted. And what happened with WikiLeaks was Julian Assange, he exposed that the United States was committing war crimes, that the military was targeting civilians, and it's absolutely horrific what was going on. And he exposed that through WikiLeaks. on top of all sorts of other stuff that was exposed in terms of government corruption through WikiLeaks. And he was in this embassy in Ecuador for 7 years, and he wasn't messed with. And then all of a sudden, Pluto comes into conjunction with the South Node. Saturn and Pluto are stationing in this little trifecta here, and they give him up, and he's arrested, and he's going to be tried, and he's going to be used. He's going to be the one burned at the stake. He's going to be the one that's made an example of, because it's going to show people, hey, if you speak out, if you tell the truth, and it undermines our authority, this is what happens to you. They're really desperately vying for power and control. They needed to make an example of someone at this point, because it's getting out of hand from their vantage point, right? Because anyway.
But you're right, and this is what happens with Pluto in Capricorn. I mean, we were talking before we began about the last time Pluto and Saturn made a conjunction in Capricorn, which was back in 1517 through to 1518, and there was some significant things that began around that time. I mean, you can talk about the Reformation, and also the African slave trade to America began at that time too, which is horrific, and Saturn rules slavery. So, you know, there were some significant shifts. Did you want to talk about the Reformation?
Yeah, let's start with the Reformation, because this is connected to the whole WikiLeaks thing and Julian Assange and what's going on. And then I want to get into the thing with the slave trade too, because that's huge. But yeah, so back in 1517, that's when we started to see the energy of this Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn start to take hold. It fully came exact at the very start of 1518. And so 1517 was the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, which was when Martin Luther he nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the church where he worked as a priest, you know, conducting mass and things like that. And these 95 Theses were exposing corruption within the Catholic Church. And because I guess, I don't know specifically the time, it was like 1800 something, or not 1800s, 1400 something, when the printing press was invented. So there was this mechanism for distributing information to the masses. This was the first form of mass media, but it wasn't being utilized. There wasn't anything that was that was fun enough for people to read, that was interesting enough to print and put out there. So it wasn't really being utilized. What's interesting about this is that somebody took his 95 Theses, and without his knowledge, and they printed it and they distributed it to everyone. It got all over Europe. And it was the first mass-produced publication that was popularized even before the Bible, because what Martin Luther did was he translated the Bible into German so the common person could actually read it. So it cut out the middleman. His whole thing was that the priests and the Pope were not the authority figures. The Bible was, God was, and you didn't need them to connect with God. And that really severely undermined the Catholic authority, because they were charging people to forgive them for their sins and like doing all this crazy stuff. And people didn't need to pay for that anymore, because Martin Luther told them what's up. And so it put divinity in their own hands. They could literally connect with God in their own homes. They could decide for themselves what scripture meant instead of having to have it come directly from a priest's mouth. And this led to all sorts of different branches of Christianity forming, and this led to a huge rebellion against the Catholic Church. And it's just the parallels between what was going on with the corruption in the Catholic Church, which was the biggest governing body of that time, and the corruption that's going on nowadays within our governments is insane. It's just insane.
And the Catholic Church coming back into that again.
Yes.
With all the exposure of the pedophilia that and corruption in that sense that goes on too, and the sort of, you know, the hierarchy trying to sort of protect one another instead of doing the right thing by the people they're meant to be serving. I mean, being a priest is meant to be in service, is it not? Obviously, that's not quite the case in the current Catholic Church situation. It's all about serving themselves, but that's another topic that I won't get into. I mean, obviously, in Australia, we've seen that happening with the gentleman who was, we can call him that, who was third in charge at the Vatican. Mm-hmm. From Australia, who had avoided extradition to be brought back here and be fairly tried for the crimes that he committed against many young children. really, really horrific. We've had a lot of that in the paper lately, and it's just appalling what's happened. But it's so good that it's been exposed. So Pluto is exposing the underbelly and making us address these hierarchical systems, just like in Martin Luther King's day. We are, being forced to question the validity of the hierarchies. Are these hierarchies serving the world's best good, my best good, our community's best good? We are, as a people, being forced to address this. I'm doing a business course at the moment, and we're talking a lot about capitalism. Is capitalism actually serving the best good of capitalist societies and the people that are there? We've been brainwashed to think that it is, but is it really? Or is it really serving the people in the top 2% of society, and the rest of us are in a form of, feudalism, sort of semi-slavery to these big wigs at the top? And we really have to question our hierarchical systems with Pluto in Capricorn. We're all being asked to do this in many, many ways. I love it. I love it. It needs to happen. And the purge, that's what Pluto is the purge. It's the excretion. It's the composting of what doesn't work. And the beautiful thing we need to keep in mind with Pluto is that he is a composter, and out of the compost blooms the flowers.
Yes.
Out of the compost can come, Jeff Green said, not Jeff Green, online, the mythology of Pluto I've read recently says, mythology states that Pluto contains the seeds for the necessary future harvest. And that's in the ancient Greek mythology of who Pluto was. And it's so true. Within this purging, this excretion that we're all going through personally and collectively, are the seeds for the necessary future harvest that we need to bring in, grow through the compost. It's exciting times. If we look about, sorry, I could go on and on, but if we look at what happened with Martin Luther, look at the results. Look at the results since that happened, and the Protestant Reformation, and the freedom spiritually that people have been able to now embark on because of what he did. And it's huge. It's huge globally, that shift, that change. I'm sure he felt when he nailed his thesis to the door that it wasn't, this was my statement and away I go and have some dinner and talk to my friends and whatever. But it shifted the whole world, and it has. In retrospect, we can look back and see, and the same is happening now. We're going to see huge things occur that will bring shifts over the next 100, 200, 300 years, and we'll be able to see it in retrospect.
Absolutely. It's like such a pivotal, karmic moment in human history. And it's just like with the Protestant Reformation, that was such a huge pivotal moment. It changed the trajectory in the entire course of human history, and everything is different because of it. And the reverberations of that we're still feeling today. However, we should note that there were, several centuries of religious wars going on because of what happened, even though, Martin Luther was preaching nonviolence and nonviolence forms of protest against the Catholic Church. It led to a lot of bloodshed. And it took a lot of time to get to where we are right now. That is the hallmark of Saturn. It takes so much time and a lot of hard work to get there. And so, we can do it that way. I don't think we should do it that way, obviously, but it's going to be hard work. It's going to be intense, going through this period of time. It's not going to be all love, light, and rainbows and flowers blooming immediately. We absolutely, like you said, we need the compost for the flowers to grow. Decomposition is part of life, and it takes a while. Life. But that process of decomposition is smelly and gross, and it's terrible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It does. It takes time. I'm a big one for I'm very big picture, look ahead at the future goal. What's the, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be really good for humanity to help us up level and, go up the spiral as we head towards further enlightenment and growth in consciousness. But you're so right. The hard work is really just beginning. We need to keep the big picture in mind to help us push through, I think, the composting stage, to know that it's a work in progress, but there is purpose to this. Yeah. Otherwise we get bogged down in the shit and the compost and the mire of the horrible situation. But I mean, Julian Assange is a perfect example. He has a purpose. He has a mission to blow the whistle on corruption. And, he's willing to put himself in self-imposed isolation to bring the truth to people. Same with this this fellow in Melbourne who has the Juice Media website. He's willing to put himself out there and receive a hell of a lot of stick from the government and people, you know, who are in these positions of authority who don't want to be undermined and want to hold on to their power. And he's really putting himself in a very difficult position here in Australia. You know, to bring the truth to people. It's his mission. And so just we have to be strong that way, I think, when we're heading for the truth and wanting to make a necessary change. Pluto is resistance to necessary change, and so we need to push through that resistance.
Absolutely. And that also kind of ties into this energy of people. So this is where the good stuff comes in, because this is an energy of people taking back responsibility, like looking at their role in either enabling or creating or feeding energy into a system that's corrupt and that is oppressive. And so that's something that a lot of people are taking stock in, like it's taking stock of right now in their own lives. And that, you know, really translates on a global level. If every single person is looking at, well, what do I do to enable this? Should I be, you know, paying these taxes? Should I be listening to this person? Should I be following this rule that on a moral level feels completely wrong to me, but it's the law, right? Looking at that and your role into feeding into it is a huge part of this process on an individual level that really can make a lot of change globally.
Absolutely. When no one is an island, you know, my decisions affect you, just like Martin Luther's decisions affected the whole world eventually. You know, we really, you're so right, it's true. We need to think about, well, yeah, think for ourselves. That's the real cue. Explore, research, discover for yourself. Don't just take some politician's word on things. Don't just take, you know, you trust your higher instinct as well. I always begin my readings by telling my clients, we've got to listen to our inner voice and the bodily reactions we have to the things we're told in order to evaluate, is this true? Is this real? And not just be brainwashed and force-fed whatever they want us to believe. Yeah, I totally agree, Heather.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's interesting that right now, though, the people who are in leadership, they are all Pluto in Leo generation. And it's really interesting to notice, like there's a lot of good things they've brought because they are Pluto in Leo generation. They've brought creativity, like phenomenal creativity to the world. And Pluto, Leo is creative. And so the right to express ourselves, that's also risen up during this time. Leo is that as well. Having lots of stuff. I mean, we live very materialistic lives, but, you know, Leo likes to have beautiful, glamorous things. And it's not like Taurus possessions, but it still likes to have nice stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the shadow side, though, is we have leaders who are, you know, the shadow side of Leo is entitlement. I'm entitled. I can because I want to, you know. I can feel up a woman even though I'm in leadership. I can, you know, I can take what I want because I'm entitled. There's selfishness. It's me at the expense of everybody else. And this is the shadow side of Pluto and Leo that we're seeing right now as well. But that's probably a whole other topic, what it means to have Pluto generationally and how it can play out. I'm Pluto Libra, and we're probably going to be the ones who are accused of destroying relationships because we're a bit deluded by them in our Pluto in Libra generation rather. And you're Pluto Scorpio?
Yeah, and we're being accused of completely deconstructing everything that's tradition and that's held dear by the Pluto and Leo people, the boomers.
Yeah, exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense. And kind of going back to the energy of that, the oppressive energy with the Pluto and Saturn conjunction, you started to talk a little bit about like the slave trade and how that began around the last time this came into a conjunction. And so we might see some of those themes come around, or I think what's going to actually be popping up is going to be around like sexual slavery and people being sold, you know, across the borders and things like that.
Yes. Or the exposure of that sort of thing, and then the gradual composting. Let's hope that's what is going to be occurring now, because sexual slavery has been going on for eons, and it's high time, you know, that it ended. So, what astrologically have you seen, Heather, that gives this the emphasis to the sexual side of things? Is it? Can I share? Look, I'll take a step back. Can I share screen? Is that okay? Can I do that?
Yeah.
I just want to share my screen. Share. This is the chart here of the last time we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. You can see Saturn up here and Pluto.
Oh,
and
with
also
Mars and Pluto. I didn't realize Mars was such a conjunction. That's why it got bloody.
That's why it got violent. So we may be able to avoid that this time, because Mars is not, although he will be opposing this conjunction on the 14th of June. So I don't mean to be a fearmongerer, but I wouldn't go traveling on the 14th of June if you can at all avoid it, or doing anything out of the normal on the 14th of June when we have an opposition of Mars to these, to the conjunction of Pluto, South Node, and Saturn. But so you can see here's the conjunction here, and that's why it was bloody. Mars was involved. But also here is Jupiter down in the sign of Virgo, which is connected to slavery. Okay, yes, he's making a nice trine there and an opposition there, but this is where Jupiter's energy was playing into it. That the energy of slavery, I feel, was also expanded at this time, the same time that this was going on. Even though there's no sort of hard aspect occurring, Jupiter expanding, let's say, the shadow side of Virgo, which is connected to slavery. Yeah, it's just an interesting chart to look at. I mean, obviously the rising sign, that was from one particular day. Please don't pay attention to that. But yeah, looky here, who's in Taurus?
Yeah, Uranus in Taurus. This was also the last time Uranus was, well, not the last time, but this was one of the times when Uranus was in Taurus, and we have that same configuration going on with the planets in Taurus and in Capricorn. It's very, very interesting. I really think that a lot of what's going to be going on is really going to be mirroring this. But to answer your question about the sexuality, so anytime you look at Pluto, you're going to be looking at like deep, dark, taboo, sort of sexual types of energy that's been hidden and repressed and all of that. And last time around, we saw one of the things that Martin Luther had an issue with the Catholic Church was their involvement in prostitution, right? And so these things, and then this time around, we have the Catholic Church. This has been going on forever, and this has been a thing forever that's been in the media, but the Catholic Church being involved in, pedophilia, and that's coming back up and bubbling up to the surface. And we also had that energy with slavery last time around, and right now the biggest slave trade is like sex slaves, essentially. So that's where just in my head making those connections came to play.
Yeah, no, it's very true, very true. And the Me Too movement, like that hasn't risen up uncoincidentally. That's all part of this as well. Any oppression, I think, is wanting to be released now, and certainly that's a big indicator of that. Thank God for that movement. It's brought awareness to the oppression that's been, say, in Hollywood since Hollywood began, really. So I'm really grateful to see that happening too. But all these sorts of things, I mean, even Brexit to an extent is part of what's going on collectively, for good or evil. There's big shifts occurring, and it's because of the people's desire for hierarchies to change. They're sick of the way the hierarchies have been structured, which is probably why Martin Luther's actions just took off like wildfire, because deep down at the very core level, people were sick of it. People were sick of having to pay to get their sins absolved and whatever else, and the truth comes out in this way. It's good.
And it is similar also in paying for things that should be like our basic human rights, like paying for being able to have access to clean water, paying for, and obviously somebody has to pay someone for medicine because there's a person giving a service and all of that. But the medical field does come into play here as well, in a lot of different ways. And if we want to go there, we can go there too.
Let's do it. Let's rip it all out. Let's do the Pluto thing. Expose it all.
Well, so medicine right now it's a corporate thing, right? It's an industry. It's a corporation, right? These are corporations that are making money and making profit off of illness. And, you know, as I said before, I consider it to be the military, industrial, medical, educational, media complex. It's all one big conglomerate. And what we're seeing now that's really coming up is that people, and maybe you can have some more insight into maybe some of the astrology with this too, is that people are doing their own research for the first time ever because the information is out there. And so people are challenging the authority of doctors who tend to feel like they have like this big authority and people should just listen to them and not, you know, question anything that they say. Not every doctor's like that. I know some really incredible medical doctors, but there is, you know, this air of authority and this like wanting people to just do what they say. And especially when it comes to the corporate medical industry, they don't want you to question what they're doing. They don't want you to look at the side effects. They don't want you to look at alternative treatments that could be just as effective and much safer, because that undermines their ability to create profit, right? And so that's what's going on, not just with, you know, vaccinations and the anti-vaccination movement, but on all levels. People are deciding that they don't want to do traditional cancer treatments. They don't want to get chemotherapy. They don't want to take this drug, that drug, the other drug. They're going to naturopathic doctors. They're looking to do home remedies. And on the one hand, that can be really great. On the other hand, sometimes people are finding weird information on the internet that's not correct too. So, you know, there's a good and bad to taking back your authority and having to choose for yourself, because you have to be able to be very discerning.
Yeah, well, I think maybe that's Neptune, perhaps in Pisces, where
Yes.
you know, Neptune rules medicine, and it's it's making sextile to this action right now. In fact, Neptune is offering support, I feel, to Pluto Saturn connection at this time. This hasn't occurred where say Saturn's been in its rulership and Neptune has been in its rulership in Pisces. I think it's like since 1638 or somewhere around there. So it's a rare event as well. And I'm not sure what was happening back then correlating to medicines and that sort of thing, but Neptune does rule medicine. But in Pisces, we know Neptune's very illusionary. It can be deception at a lower manifestation level. So when you mention people jumping on the internet and getting false information, there can be deception there as well. But I feel that ultimately the benefit is going to be that the structures and corporations, Capricorn, Saturn, and Pluto there too, are going to be dissolved. Neptune dissolves things as the truth comes out. So, you know, Neptune making an aspect to this is going to, like, medicines and that sort of thing is where that's really coming from, I feel. Yeah, I mean, Uranus likes to liberate people as well. So, but he's not really offering connection at the moment. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. To this action. He's just a little bit too much out of orb, but we might certainly see in 7 years' time, maybe, when he makes an aspect to this particular point in the chart. Even though the conjunction will be over, he will still be able to trigger that 21, 22, 23 degrees of Capricorn by trine. We might find that there's some liberation that occurs in about seven-ish years' time when that happens. Just a hypothetical. We'll see what happens. I'm certainly no mundane predictive astrologer. That's not my territory, but we'll see.
Well, actually, so I do videos with one of my teachers. His name is Robert Phoenix, and he is a mundane astrologer. And one of the things we've been talking about since last October was the vaccine thing blowing up because of Jupiter squaring Neptune. Neptune ruling vaccines, pharmaceuticals, poisons, doctors, hospitals, all of these things. So a lot of hype around the medical industry, and that whole thing just really coming to a head and really being out there. And one of the things that happened, this is a little off topic, but it is because it's related, because this is, like you said before, it's in sextile with Saturn right now as part of this configuration. And so the explosion of this whole vaccine phenomena and everything that's going on around it is going to be gradually changing the structures and hierarchies around the medical system, just like you said. So that makes complete and perfect sense, and it's all tied together. And what really happened here in the United States was that when Mercury was retrograding, going back and forth over Neptune, the vaccine thing was all over the media. And then literally when Jupiter's stationing, it's not an exact square with Neptune, but Jupiter's stationing, and all of a sudden New York City is mandating vaccines and saying that they're going to go door to door to these people, and if you don't have proof of vaccination, you have to pay $1,000. And I mean, first off, that's illegal. and also that's Pluto in the South Node, right? That's really super oppressive. That is way crossing a line times 1,000, and it's really infringing on people's personal rights and their right to privacy and to feel safe and secure in their own neighborhoods. And some people don't have $1,000. You can't mandate vaccines like that. So it exploded. It exploded over the past few weeks.
Wow, I hadn't heard about that. Not down here, but that's, yeah, that's huge. So what's been the backlash of that? What's happened?
Well, they tried to, first in a different area in New York, they tried to ban unvaccinated children from public spaces because of a measles outbreak. And this is in an Orthodox Jewish community. So this also incorporates that Jupiter in Sagittarius religion, and religious exemptions for vaccines are really under scrutiny and under attack right now in the United States. So religious freedom, if it involves medical decisions, it's being undermined. It's under attack right now. And so they actually ruled that this was illegal, what they were doing, and within a few days, children were allowed back in the public spaces. But then they moved this to a community which has a lot of Orthodox Jewish, presence in New York City. And right now, it's still kind of up in the air what's going on with that. But, regardless of what side you're on the vaccine debate and how you feel about vaccine safety, the fact that the government is mandating that you get injected with something because they say so, regardless of what your doctor thinks, regardless of what your personal beliefs are, that should be absolutely terrifying to every single person in this country. And it's going to be happening in other places too.
Yeah, it is. It happens in Australia as well. We recently had no jab, no kinder. So you can't go to, it's in Australia, we go to from grade age 3 to 4 to 5 in kindergarten, and then they start primary school. And so if you haven't had your vaccinations, you're not eligible to go to kinder. So the same thing is happening here too. It's exclusion of people and taking away their rights to choose how they live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I said with the Jewish media issue in the parliament as well, we need to be really concerned about these things and not be passive when we see these things happening, because it's taking away our freedom. That might be just one little bite at a time, but sooner or later we're going to look back and realize this massive chunk has been taken out of who we are as people and our rights and our even our identity as nations as well. Like if we can't have freedom of speech in Australia to criticise the government and what the government's doing, then what are we really as a nation? Are we democratic or are we not? So we need to wake up to these things, and I think there are a lot more people becoming, I'll use the word enlightened, about these sorts of issues. But we really need it far more. We need to happen far more so that change can come about, and it will. It's just I think it's the birth pains we're in right now, really collectively, and the big change is still yet to come. Perhaps when Pluto moves into Aquarius and we really hit the Aquarian age, when that happens, then we might start seeing, a lot more equality, that sort of thing happen. Here's hoping, and that the results of this time in Capricorn really start to take effect, hopefully without the energy of Mars giving it some bloodshed and horror.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Well, so for us this time around, instead of Mars, we have Jupiter. Jupiter is going to be moving into Capricorn and joining this little stellium here. And so, this to me is sort of like a sigh of relief and a breath of fresh air. Like, it's going to feel very, very hard, especially right now. Jupiter is going to come in, and that's still going to be challenging. We're still going to have work to do, but it's like you see the bigger picture. You see a different perspective on it. You understand why this is happening and what it's going to achieve and accomplish on a personal level and on a global level. And Jupiter will protect us. Jupiter is the great benefic.
He will. I love that, Heather. That's just such a beautiful notion to cling to and knowledge to cling to. I love that. I think New Zealand's been a really good shining light at the moment globally as well, as a nation that can come out of some terror that they've experienced, and their Prime Minister has really taken positive action, and the gun issue has been dealt with. Or has been dealt with over there. She's a really good example of someone who can take this collective concern, in this case it was religion, and transform it into something that is for the better good of her people long term. I'm not sure if people are aware about the terrorist attack that occurred in the mosques.
Yeah.
I think there was you did hear about that?
Everyone, I think it was a worldwide like news story.
Yeah. So, and then she's come out and stood really strong against that sort of activity and against the guns and the accessibility of that sort of thing. So, we can change and we can shift, and there can be positive come out of these traumatic situations that we face, but it's going to take, like you said, time with Saturn and direct action by good political leaders in this case. But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But there is hope. I'm trying to illustrate that there is hope for us on a collective level. But what about personally? Have you noticed that any difference in your readings, Heather, or what people are asking you about and what they're coming for readings for with this energy playing out in the universe at the moment?
Well, kind of like I mentioned before, it's a lot of energy around people just really feeling this burden, this oppressive energy in whatever area of their life it's being impacted in their chart. And one of the things that really, like I was mentioning before, needs to occur is people taking personal responsibility. Not everything that's going on that's oppressive and difficult and challenging is your fault. That's absolutely not the case. And sometimes circumstances come about for this reason or that reason, but it's looking at what you can do about it. Even if it's completely, if you perceive it as being completely out of your control and this like off the wall situation that put you in this place where you are just restricted and limited in your ability to take action in the way that you want to, you can change your mindset around it. You can change your perspective on it. You can change the way that you speak about it. You can change your interactions with people. There's things that you can change, taking back control. And this is where the Saturn comes in, because Saturn doesn't happen all at once. It's all about taking the small, steady efforts every single day to reach your goals and to accomplish what you need to accomplish and to get rid of those oppressive structures. And so doing a small thing like changing your mindset around this, writing some affirmations around that, talking to this person who can maybe help you out, taking control in small ways. That's really what we're looking at right now.
Yeah. I've been finding, Pluto rules therapy. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, in psychology, yes, but that's actually a form of therapy. And I've been observing a lot in my readings lately that there's a big 8th house emphasis, and the call there is to practice therapy on a personal level. Perhaps we could do it on a collective level as well. But the 6th house is a form of healing. Like the 6th house is disease, yes, but it's also the capacity to heal through doctors, through nurses, through practical application of health and well-being and so on. The 8th house is healing through therapy, through going deep, digging into the core of things. And of course, Pluto rules the 8th house, and 12th house is connected to divine healing, miraculous kind of healing and stuff. But the 8th house Pluto energy means we need to purge stuff, and we do that through therapy. And so I've been encouraging a lot of my clients to look at different forms of therapy, not forking out wads of cash to, therapists are going to charge a fortune, but even like going and do dance therapy. I mean, there's a group in Australia called 5 Rhythms where you channel energy through your body, and with different start off like a fairy and end up sort of like a really brave warrior kind of dance work that gets the energy pumping. And I barely leave a session of that myself without having some tears or purging something. So there's dance therapy, there's art therapy, there's music therapy, there's go and have a coffee with your friends and just purge and talk and share. I mean, we can all be investing in therapy, and it doesn't have to be hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but it's going to be healing and cathartic for wherever Pluto is in our personal chart. Plus, it's something that we need to do for the long haul. And I've only just realized this lately with Pluto and Saturn together. It is a long haul exercise. It's not, I'm going to do therapy for a week and then I'll be right to go, thumbs up. It's, I need to do this. This is what I need to do regularly to allow my soul to purge as the layers of issues in my life come up, as the darkness, the shadow that I carry within, everybody does, needs to constantly be brought into the light, and new issues and new thoughts and new blockages to, my relationships, to my, understanding of things and the karma, all this big conglomerate that needs to be brought out into the light. And I think I've been talking a lot in my videos recently about Pluto and the purging that needs to happen and how it correlates to where the South Node is in your chart right now. It also relates a little to where Pluto sits in your house system too in the chart. But I've been noticing more and more as we're heading towards the South Node Saturn conjunction that'll be coming up at the end of this month, that it's now shifting a little towards fears. Mm-hmm. Where Pluto is purging the karma. Pluto's massively karmic, as is Saturn, but Pluto is the karma of trauma, karma of suffering. So whatever mindsets that you've got in your head from early childhood or past lives that are, that are the result of trauma and suffering that you've had, that's what Pluto's dealing with. Now we're getting to the Saturn. Saturn is the karma of fear. What is it that you fear? What are you afraid of in life? And so we're going to be, I'll talk more about this as the conjunction gets closer, but this is now the issue. And it'll often correlate to Pluto stuff. You've had a traumatic experience, so now you fear certain things and you've got a restrictive mindset of fear about something that's holding you back personally. So I'm really interested. I don't know about you, but as an astrologer, I almost like to sit back in a detached way, very Aquarius or Uranus, sit back and detach what's going on here. Okay, I can observe this energy now, what's going to play out. Let's just see what's happening. It's quite fascinating. So I'm really curious to see this South Node Saturn conjunction, what it's going to bring out collectively and in people as we deal with our fears and purge our fears. South Node is what we need to get rid of as well, a bit like Pluto. It's what we need to excrete, what we need to let go of in order to rise into our destiny. Fears are stopping us rising into our destiny, and time to let go of old hierarchies, old structures within you that are holding you back from your destiny. It's an exciting time. It really, really is, personally, and fascinating time collectively. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm just so glad Jupiter's involved. That helps.
Jupiter's involved, and I kind of like the energy of Uranus and Taurus too, kind of shaking things up and changing things. It's like all of the most stable, solid structures and things that we thought were just going to be long lasting, and that served us for a certain time. Now it's those very same things that at one point might have been very liberating for us and felt really good to us are now feeling like you're in a cage. Like we built our own prisons, we built our own little boxes that we're stuck in right now. And now is the time to purge and to decompose, like you were talking about, and to let these things go. And fear is one of the biggest things. Now that you mentioned that is another thing that's been coming up, especially today. I have been getting so many frantic emails with Sun Square Pluto of people that want readings right away because this and this and this is happening and they're afraid and they need to do this, and like they can't. That's another thing too with Pluto, is that people really want to hold on to control and they want to be certain of, there's a fear of uncertainty and there's a need to know what's going to happen next, and that's coming out in people who are prone to those types of thoughts and behaviors. And I mean, I have a Pluto in conjunction in my chart. I'm like, I want to know, that's why I'm an astrologer. I started with electional astrology, wanting to know what's going to happen next and what dates are the best dates so I can make sure that everything goes exactly the way that I want it to, only to learn that that's not how that works at all, right? And so people are dealing with that right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the fear is a big thing. I personally have been, like, I've purged a lot of stuff in the last couple of months relating to my family. My South Node's in the 4th house, and a lot of family stuff, but it actually ties back, and I hope you don't mind me using myself as an illustration. Sometimes, I'm a bit hesitant to use my clients' illustrations simply because I don't want to do something without permission and then offend anybody. So that's why I tend to use a lot of my own illustrations. But we need to look cyclically at what's going on. Back in 2010, the North Node was conjunct with Pluto. And so many of us had an experience of the beginning of what is now culminating. We purged, and I went through a divorce at that stage. I left my husband and became a single mom, and that's what was happening for me back in 2010. And there's many stories for different people with different experiences, but that's what I was dealing with. And then we've gone on, and then Pluto's South Node conjunction, my relationship with my family dissolved, not through anything that I did, but they decided that because I practice astrology, I wasn't welcome. And so I'm like, yeah, it's been really hard this last Pluto purge, but I'm fully aware that these things are sometimes necessary, maybe for their own soul journey to learn, and maybe for my soul journey to learn. So, you know, I'm quite accepting of whatever, even though it is hard. But and it's been building for 9 years, let's say, this energy. So loss of a partner and now loss of parents in this instance through the Pluto conjuncting with the nodes. And now as I'm heading to the fear side of things, the conjunction with fear, I'm really starting to look at myself. Okay, what is it in me that has attracted this? And is it a fear of, well, let me explain. My husband, I left my husband because I was an extension, one of the reasons, I was an extension of his ego. And I was a trophy wife kind of a situation, and I didn't feel loved and valued for me, and that I was there to serve him, and you know, those sorts of stories. I'd always lived with my parents, under my parents' shadow, of trying to, you know, please the unpleasable. You know, I'm the eldest child, and we tend to try very hard to please our parents, and I spent 45 years trying to do that and not being able to. So for me, the fear is that I am not lovable unless I am trying to please someone else. And that's what's been the enlightenment that I've got. Okay, I was with a partner who I felt that I was, you know, not able to be cherished for who I was. I had to love him in order to be worthy. I felt that I had to please my parents. They've both got Moon in Virgo. No offense to Moon in Virgo people, but the critical nature was there, that I was not able to do anything to please them, no matter how hard I tried. And now the lesson for me is to stop living in fear that I cannot please anybody unless I am denying myself and serving them. Do I make sense? Is that clear? That's been the cyclical journey, 9-year journey that I've been on, and I'm so grateful that Saturn has revealed this is the fear you have. This is the fear you're living with, Kesenya, and it's come out of this purging experience. It's been a 9-year process for me of letting go of people in my life who do not love me for who I am, or do not see me for who I am, or value me for who I am. Obviously, my parents don't value the fact that I'm an astrologer. They've told me I'm an embarrassment to them and things like that. That, you know, I need to let go of that. And so this fear and purging goes hand in hand. I hope that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah, so I just want to encourage anybody watching to look at what was purged out of your life with Pluto and the nodes in 2010, and what is being purged now, and does that correlate to any fear within you that also needs to be purged with Saturn and Pluto? Do you need to let go of a fear of that you're not lovable unless you're pleasing somebody else, or whatever it happens to be for you? And it's really interesting, the WikiLeaks cycle that really got going in 2010.
Yeah.
Particularly started talking about Guantanamo Bay and so on in 2010 on WikiLeaks, and now the 9-year cycle has culminated for him. So and I see it a lot in my clients as well. There's a cycle. Everything is cyclical in astrology, and not predictable necessarily, but cyclical. So that's my story on a personal level, and I'm sure your clients will be able to relate to many, you know, instances of that cyclical nature. But it's a powerful time. It's a really powerful time of up-leveling and evolving. We choose to let Pluto do the work, you know?
Absolutely. And that's a very intense situation. I'm so sorry that you had to learn the lessons in that way. That's very isolating and very hard. But it sounds like you have a really good understanding and a good self-understanding and an incredible mindset around, you know, going through this process, which is important. And that's what astrology does. It brings that perspective and that understanding where you can see what is happening and you can put the pieces together as to why. And it does provide that sense of relief, like, okay, well, this is part of my journey. I just got to roll with it, right?
Part of my journey, and part of the journey of those people that I interact with as well. This is their karma too that they're dealing with, and that they're trying to up-level from in whatever way they think they need to, or regressing if that's more the case. But yeah, it's a big time for everybody. So, you know, I'm sure that my parents and my ex-husband are going through their own purging processes now with Pluto and the nodes, you know, that they're trying to work through. So we've just got to do the best we can with our situation, and honor our own journey first of all, really, don't we? So big lessons, big life lessons come with big planets.
Absolutely. And you did a really great video with the Pluto and South Node conjunction. I'll put a link to that down below if people want to watch it, because I think I commented on the video too. You were describing a lot of stuff that, you know, was happening to me because you went through all the signs and all of that. And like in 2010, that was a horrible, really rough time where I left. It was my first big move. I moved to Chicago. I was living with a guy. He was my boyfriend at the time, and it turns out he was cheating on me. He was taking advantage of me financially. It was just a bad relationship. And I was exposed to a lot of different toxins and different things, and I ended up getting very sick, and that started a 9-year battle with chronic illness that I am now at. I feel like I am actually recovered for the first time, and I can say I don't have chronic fatigue syndrome. I don't have these symptoms anymore. But the fear part is what really, when you're talking about that, I was so sick and none of the doctors knew what the hell was happening with me, and they were just making me more afraid. Everything that they told me made me terrified, and they'd see me for 15 minutes, they'd tell me something really scary, and then they'd just leave, and I'd Google it, right? And so I actually started having really bad anxiety and panic attacks around symptoms that I was having. So I would experience a symptom like I would get dizzy and lightheaded, or like I would have like some sort of something going on. And immediately my brain would think that I'm like, worst case scenario, I'm dying. And one time I actually went to the hospital, and I was studying psychology. I knew the diagnostic criteria. I memorized it for panic disorder and panic attacks. But in the moment, because my brain thought I was dying, my body thought I was dying, and there was no telling me that I was panicking. I was dying, right? And that was the only period in my life that I've ever experienced something like that. And now 9 years later, I'm on the other side of that. And what I feel like this is the moment for me to do is to start incorporating and utilizing that experience. And in the third house now, this conjunction, utilizing that to help other people, right? Communicate my experience with other people. And also to not be afraid to speak my mind, because that's something that I've been repressing a little bit. And even in this video, saying the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I don't usually give my personal opinions very much because I don't like the comment section, you know, controversy.
Delete the haters. We give too much credence to them, you know. We need bouncers on our YouTube channels. We really do. Seriously, we don't let dickheads into the nightclub that are going to ruin everybody else's fun. Why do we let them into our Facebook and YouTube and all these other social media pages? Just delete them. Be a bouncer. Come on, out of here. Having everyone's fun. Get out.
That would be a great business if somebody out there wants to start a YouTube bouncer business where you just go on people's social media and get rid of like the jerks.
Totally. I fully think, you know, that's a thing. In this business course I'm doing, Heather, I even mooted that idea. I said, is anyone looking for an idea? Come and be a bouncer on my YouTube. It's necessary. But yeah, you should be. I mean, freedom to speak your mind is an important human right. Let's face it. And you have an important message to share. What did you say you had in the third house?
Oh, the Saturn Pluto South Node conjunction is happening in my third house.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the first time when it triggered it, actually triggered my Grand Cardinal Cross. It was with my Chiron, and that's when everything got I got all my cardinal planets were being triggered around that time period. And I could get into all the medical astrology stuff about it, but that's for another a whole other topic. But it was like everything all at once was just going into chaos. Now it's opposing my moon. I moved into a beautiful, wonderful home. I had to let go of my fears around finances and buying a home and all these things that I thought that I couldn't do. And I was restricting myself, right, with my beliefs about what I could and could not do and what I was capable of. And I am so grateful right now for the Saturn energy and the Pluto energy, because I mean, it's brought me to such a wonderful place right now.
Congratulations. It's a big milestone and a momentous achievement. Well done, you guys. It's really good.
Thank you.
I think we're a really good combination today, Heather, because my Saturn-Pluto conjunction is occurring in my 11th house of large groups of people on the internet. So combine the two of us, we'll get the message out there to people. It's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so before we sign off on here, I just want to point out what you have behind you. Explain this wheel, because I love it and I'm going to get one, and I want everyone to get one of these wheels.
Well, I use this in my astrology videos actually, and I mentioned to Heather before we started that it's actually hiding a big pile of sewing behind it. I'm trying to be a bit discreet and look like I have a lovely room when it's really quite messy. But yeah, these planets, they're movable, and yeah, I use it to sort of teach. It's a great teaching tool for any online astrologers like Heather and I. But it's just something that I made, and if it's all right with Heather, I've recently, this will be the one that if you're going to buy one, Heather, this will be what you get. It's a little magnetic one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. It spins and it's got all the planets and they're movable, and you can write on it with, that's meant to be a love heart. It's not a very good drawing of a love heart.
That's awesome. So you can draw the aspects and stuff?
You can draw, like, you know, the aspects, or, you know, like Matt loves Heather or something, you can draw on there. It'll wipe off. I don't know where I've put my eraser, somewhere around here, otherwise I'd show you that it does wipe off. You'll just have to trust me on that. But yeah, thanks for letting me share that. I appreciate it. Yeah, but it's a really good tool if you want to teach astrology, and I use it with my kids, and, you know, they put your planets where you want them, and yeah, it's fun. It's good fun. But yeah,
that's awesome.
Thanks for letting me mention that. I appreciate it.
No, I love this wheel, and so I'll put a link for anybody who's interested in getting their own astrology wheel. And I mean, even just for people who are like nerds like us with the astrology and just want to keep track every day, like this is what's going on, you know, like put it up, you can see it. And I mean, I would totally just use that even for that purpose if I didn't have a YouTube channel.
Exactly. Hang it like a clock in your kitchen and just, you know, move that little planet a couple of degrees each day. And then, like, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? Aha, yeah, you look at the clock telling you why. Yeah, Mars is in wherever. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, do you have any final thoughts about like Saturn and Pluto and all of that before we sign off?
I think we've covered a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. I hope that it's you know, that's helped people and given some insight to people around these energies collectively and personally. Yeah, it's an exciting time, and it is going to be a challenging time, no doubt about it. But I think, like I said, keep the big picture in mind. I have Jupiter rising, so I'm always like, oh, this is the big picture. This is where we're all heading. But it helps. It helps you get through and the tougher times when you know that there's a greater purpose and a higher good at play. You have to believe that. That's Neptune. That's Neptune saying there is a higher good here. Keep your belief, keep your faith that there is purpose to what we're going through. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I feel like that's a really wonderful note to end on. So thank you so much for coming onto my channel again and for sharing all of your wonderful wisdom about the astrology. And if any of you out there want to book a reading with Kesenya, I'm going to post a link to her website where you can get the astrology wheel, you can get a karmic reading or a Pluto South Node reading, so you can connect with her there. And subscribe to her channel. She has a really great channel. I actually watch a lot of your forecasts, which I don't do a lot of because I'm astrology all day, every day. And Kesenya has some really incredible knowledge from a lot of different areas in astrology that it's just uncommon to come by. So I learned things, listening to your channel. So check her out.
It goes both ways, Heather. I love the videos. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.